families, creating a lifetime of memories. Sadly, some families are denied these important moments due to the sad practice of alienation. These are families divided.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to tonight's episode of Families Divided TV. Parental alienation is a social and public health issue disrupting families and the capacity of parents to fulfill their roles. Parental alienation theory and practice take a stand against anti-family ideologies seeking to abolish families and radically restructure them to be absorbed by the state and its dominating views. This extreme ideology confronts parents when they engage with family law to remediate alienation in their families, only to find they're dealing with an unimaginable family concept. Tonight, Dr. Stan Korosi will talk about the core factors defining these anti-family ideologies and expose their contradiction of using alienation to achieve their so-called utopian goals, whilst condemning its use to describe their behavior. He will also propose how such extreme anti-family ideologues corrupt the concept of a child's best interests by removing the idea of the family and devaluing the child's family relationships. Dr. Korosi is also going to propose what the field of parental alienation should stand for and what it should stand against. All parents and alienated parents in particular need to position themselves in a present and future in which families are a network of relationships and power and vulnerable to destruction by alienation. Dr. Stan Korosi knocks it out of the ballpark tonight, so you don't want to miss this. This is a great episode. Before we do that, I'm wanting to remind you again of our fall conference, October 5th and 6th. Now's the time to register. There's not much time left. I also want to let you know again that this will only be through Zoom. It will not be shared on our Families Divided TV YouTube channel. So please join us. We look forward to this great and exciting two-day event. We have 10 great speakers. So we're going to be right back with these important messages, and then Dr. Stan Korosi. Hello, everyone. I'm Elaine Cobb. I'm founder and president of Family Access Fighting for Children's Rights. I'm also the host and executive producer of Families Divided TV. I wanted to tell you about our upcoming fall conference, which is a virtual international conference, October 5th and 6th. It's titled You Asked, We Deliver. I had sent an email blast out so you guys could send in what you wanted us to talk about in the different topics. Usually we have just one topic. However, this time we've chosen as our last conference to have all different types of topics that you guys have chosen and that mean a lot to you and we consider hot topics. So I wanted to just explain a little bit of them to you really quickly. We're going to have Dr. Edward Crook as one of our keynote speakers. He's going to be sharing with us his findings and his paper on grandparents who have never seen their grandchildren. He did a study on this for almost a year and a half, and we asked him to do it, and he kindly said he would, and we were very grateful, and we're really excited about hearing what he's got to say. This study that he has done is going to be able to be used in courts, in the legislature, in trying to get laws. We've never been regarded, as you all know, I am an alienated grandmom who's never seen your granddaughter dare, and they're, her parents, Brian and Kate, have not allowed Brian's side of his family to see him, to spend time with her. We've never met her. So we're really excited about this because when you go to the legislature, all of the bills state in every state that you need to have had time and a relationship with the child, whereas many many of us in the world have never had that opportunity. So this is a huge breakthrough, and we're very excited. So you want to be tuned for that. Our other keynote speaker will be Bill Eddy, and he's going to be speaking to us on court trends, the trouble with letting the children decide. That's a huge topic, and it's knowing that it's Bill Eddy, it's going to be huge. So we're really looking forward to that. Dr. Joshua Coleman is also going to be one of our presenters, and he's going to be speaking to us on the do's and don'ts on reaching out to your alienated and estranged children. We all know Dr. Coleman gives us great advice and insight, so this will be a wonderful presentation. Dr. Sue Kornbluth will be speaking to us on managing personality disordered co-parents who alienate their children. Co-parenting is very difficult, and in many cases, it doesn't work, sadly. But Dr. Sue Kornbluth is going to give you some pointers on this, which will be very important and very effective. So you want to be able to be a part of that. And Dr. Mary Alvarez has got a very interesting topic, which we're really looking forward to. It's called Parental Alienation, Toxic Stress, and Your Child's Brain. This, to me, is so important because we often wonder what our children are going through as they're with the alienated parent and with the alienator, and also what it's doing to their brain and what are they thinking. So this is going to be very important. So I hope you'll be a part of that too. Chris Turner is going to be speaking to us about trusting and understanding agents of the court in high conflict cases. And that will be all the different professionals. She's going to be hitting on all of them that work in the court system. So that's going to be huge. Dr. Kelly Baker is going to be speaking to us on a topic that we've never covered, which is about teens. We've never talked about teens ever in any of our presentations, and that hit me. I'm like, oh my, we really need to get this out there. So she's going to be speaking to us about therapeutic interventions for parent-child contact problems with teens. So that'll be really great. Melanie Gill, who has done some fantastic presentations for us in recent weeks, she's going to be speaking to us on pathological liars, and her title is called Liar, Liar, Pants on Fire. And you know, if it's Melanie, it's going to be great. Dr. Kathleen Ray is going to be speaking to us on understanding the realities of a reunification program, dispelling common misconceptions. This is going to be very important that we get to see this presentation. There's so much false information being taken around out there, fake news, if you will, and lies also. So this will be great coming from Dr. Ray, and you need all your facts, and facts is what we need. So stay tuned for that. Attorney Chris Smith, who is one of our best attorneys, who is really, really great. He really cares about families. He's going to be speaking to us about secrets to litigating parental alienation allegations. And that'll be really good. And Randy Fine, who does some great work on narcissism, she's going to be speaking on confronting the mirror. Do narcissists face their own reflections? That's a huge question. And Dean Tong is going to also be really bringing us a strong topic: false allegations of abuse, navigating the three-ring circus. That's going to be really good from our forensic professional, Dean Tong. So that's going to be great. Now, I want to let you know, early bird special is now. You're getting, a great discount. This is a 2-day event, and you can register now. Please go to the link that's included here in the comments in our YouTube video, and it will take you to the webpage and also where you can register. I do hope you'll be with us for our very last conference. We are really looking forward to it. We have got some powerful presentations. And last but not least, I want to tell you, I almost forgot, but it's so important. We're having a 3-person panel on the Caden's Law. Caden's Law is destroying families. And we want to talk to you about the legislator and how we can go around that and do other laws. We're going to have on that powerful panel Dr. Lynn Steinberg, Rabbi Yaakov Achabam, and also we're going to have with us Robert Garza, who's traveling the country doing lots of work. These three know much about Cadence law and about family law in the legislature. You want to be there for this. Our families are at stake, and it's hugely important. So don't miss this panel discussion. Okay, guys, so I've left you with huge presentations and much excitement there. We're really excited about it. We're also going to have on Sunday night a time where you can have a support meeting where you can talk about your case and your different things, your testimonies, and we're going to enjoy doing that. And also on Saturday night, which has been really great every time we've ever done it, we're having from 9 p.m. till 7 a.m. One-on-one talk, what I call lovingly Chatty Cathy, because we have people that stay on there practically all night long and just talk and share their hearts and give each other suggestions on what to do. And it's a great time. So, okay, I've said enough. And if you have questions, please email me at familyaccessinc@aol.com. Happy to answer the questions. And I really, really look forward to seeing you October 5th and October 6th. Don't miss it.
Divorce and co-parenting are a major life interruption for families, especially the kids, but also for parents and grandparents. And it's even worse in blame-filled, high-conflict cases. When parents engage in alienation by turning the kids against the other parent or grandparents, kids suffer. They're denied the opportunity to build the 4 big skills necessary for future resilience. New Ways for Families online class can help. Parents learn to use our popular BIF and EAR skills to calm the conflict and stop the hostile emails and texts. And we even have a class for kids and parents to learn together. Research shows a 75% improvement in joint parental decision-making after this course is taken, plus overall improvements for kids' well-being. Don't wait to make this affordable investment in your children's future and improve your well-being too. Start learning new ways for your family today at conflictplaybook.com.
Hi, it's Stan Korosi, PhD, here again. I'm a clinical sociologist specialising in parental alienation as a social, legal, economic and political issue. My last podcast discussed the ideologies and forces reshaping our families. So just to review that briefly, these ideologies reshape the families we used to know as a fluid network of relationships that are flexible and combine across geography and time. So families are not confined to a single household anymore that span geographical and international boundaries. The family today is more like a network of family relationships. Those relationships are characterized by values and beliefs that are expressed in family narratives. A family member who controls the narrative controls the family. And what we used to know as traditional families come together and separate on the basis of those narratives, instead of around social structures and needs. That type of narrative family is especially vulnerable to destructive, harmful, alienating narratives, and they manifest as the parental alienation behaviours that we know as parental alienation. This type of family is also vulnerable to ideologies and politics that drive those alienating narratives. And I also discussed how those ideologies try to abolish the family as unnecessary in today's world. I call those groups who subscribe to those ideologies as family abolitionists. They actually publish books on the subject. Parental alienation theory and practice stands in the way of those extreme ideologies, the extreme politics, and the groups that support them. So today, I'm going to discuss a new approach to disabling those extreme ideologies in the support of extremist groups. We're going to explore the methodology these groups use to infiltrate parental alienation, misinformation, disinformation into the child's best interests and how they promote their anti-family agenda. I'm going to leave you with at the very end is we use the same methods as they do, but with integrity. But first, we have to understand them. What we'll do now is review anti-family, anti-PA ideology. So where do we stand with families and children? I suggest that parental alienation and its behaviours are an Orwellian thought crime. Alienating parents subscribe to an alienating ideology. They think that if they can eliminate the thought in their children that they love their other parent, they eliminate that love as though it's a crime. Parental alienation and its behaviours are like a type of thought control. They involve parental newspeak, exactly as George Orwell described in his book 1984, and also shown in the subsequent film adaptations of that book. George Orwell's book 1984 is a critique of the same Marxist ideology to which extreme second-wave feminists, whom I call family abolitionists, subscribed to in the 1970s, and which persists today in the form of parental alienation ideology and in the form of parental alienation deniers. These groups don't support any form of democracy that we would understand, and they don't support equity and power in family relationships. They don't centre the family in society. In their world, the state has no responsibility to parents and families. The state is the family. They also subscribe to disturbing ideologies that make the children more adult than they really are. It's what we call the mature minor idea, that they have their own adult-like capability. They should be given an equal voice. That's not how family relationships actually work. But they think that in their type of false democracy, children should have equal voices to their parents. And they corrupt the best interests of the child to exclude a presumption that parent-child relationships are central to children's development. And so the concept of the children's best interests now exists in international jurisdictions of family law, separate from the relationship with their parents. Parental alienation in the family, what we call alienation in the family, is a symptom of alienation in other parts of our lives and our economy. Let's look at what de-alienation is and how we use de-alienation as a tool in what we call the post-truth world. The post-truth world that we now live in is a game of domination using narratives, propaganda, disinformation, and misinformation. Objective truth is devalued. There are people out there who believe the earth is really flat, despite the pervasive science, the objective facts that say it is not. In this game of domination, it's not played between who is bigger and who is smaller. It's between those who are quicker and slower with narratives, with their information, with their views. The faster you are, the more compelling you are with your narrative, the more power you have. Because power and narrative are one and the same thing. It's what we call power relations. Power entrained in relationships through narratives, how we speak. So alienation constructs superficial relationships. It turns relationships and identity into a commodity and a property. It makes them things that get traded. They can be created and they can be destroyed and sold, traded, as though they are assets or rubbish to be thrown away. And then alienation, alienating behaviours, become a means to an end. The ends justify the means. So a parent can own the child as an object and dispose of a parent's identity as unwanted property because it serves a purpose. And the fact that it achieves that purpose justifies the means by which to go about it. It lacks any moral compass. And so an alienated parent-child relationship is a commodified relationship about property. It's a very inferior imitation of a loving parent-child relationship and an inferior imitation of a parent's identity. Our role is to offer secure relationships in a field of constant anxiety over uncertainty in the world that we live in, because everything has become subjective. But the one stable place we can go are our family relationships. We know what we stand against. What do we stand for? On the left are concepts of the family with which we should be familiar. They support many United Nations resolutions about individual responsibility for bringing up children, shared responsibility for the family as a building block of society, and recognition that the family is essential to the society we know today. Alienation is a threat. It destroys families and undermines family values, and undermines those values that most parents would subscribe to. On the right are the ideologies that claim there's no longer a role for families, certainly not in the way that most of us would recognise. Marxian thinking, Karl Marx, was used in the 1970s, and they expropriated those ideas to drive movement towards equity and equality, particularly for women. There's nothing intrinsically wrong with that. But that philosophy subscribes to the idea that the ends justify the means. And within Marxist thinking, the family has always been a threat to the state, because children are brought up with their parents' values and beliefs. The family is its own integral unit, its own hermetic container. And Marxists do not like that, because the state has to own everything. There's only communal ownership and no individual aspiration in a Marxist world. In most places in the mid-1970s, family laws changed to introduce no-fault divorce. This helped women gain equality and helped them escape historically patriarchal and violent and abusive relationships. But it also diminished the value of marriage, diminished the value of family, because the family could be dissolved now with great ease. You didn't need a reason. So it weakens the family as a social entity, as a construction block of society. So we know parental alienation, parental alienating behaviours are an anti-family ideology. They target the family. Who gets to be a parent? On what and whose terms? Our job is to stand against that with family values. So how do we do that? Well, we stop agonising and we organise. And I'm using Florence Kennedy, an African-American activist fighting for women and minority groups for equity and equality. And her idea, and the idea that we need to stand for, is to organise ourselves into a political group, a political party, political ideas. We need to hold alienating parents to account and the experts that they engage to account, to make them responsible and accountable for change. Let's see how we can do that using the methods that are used against us. So as I've said before, parental alienation deniers and family abolitionists use Marxist political methods to attack and undermine us. The 1970s saw the development of de-alienation and liberation psychology as an anti-oppression strategy, particularly in South America, to undermine repressive and tyrannical, undemocratic regimes, particularly in Latin America. We can use those same methods to address alienation as a tyranny in the family, a tyranny against children and the parents who they love. There's three main components: critical education, the ideologizing, and de-alienation. Let's deal with the first one. We use critical education to understand individual effects as resulting from social conditions. That is a fundamental to Marxist thinking. Historically, we took a conventional approach to child psychological abuse as a presentation local to the child and to their immediate personal environment in the family. And yet, alienation is actually a political act of power to control, if not destroy, the family. And so the assumption has been that children present with resistance and refusal that's only related to their relationship with the parents, when in fact, it's not. It's that parent trying to gain power and control within the family. Primary reason why family courts around the world are paralysed and why conventional remediations often fail is because they do not recognise the fact that individual presentations are signs of broader structural problems within the family setting. We have to deal with the structure before we deal with the individual presentations. Our job is to identify the social conditions in family relations that make it normal to alienate children, and then point out the connection between those conditions in children's behaviour. In other words, we have to identify the cultural values in families that allow parents to behave in alienating ways without any moral regard for their children or the other parent. Those are the social conditions that normalise their behaviour. Students of Karl Marx know exactly what I'm talking about. That is a fundamental principle that people's behaviour and attitudes reflect social conditions in their situation. By pointing out the connection between relationship conditions in the family and individual presentations in children and behaviours in parents, that's how we nail parental alienating behaviours. We have to recognise the underlying mission and purpose of alienation and its behaviours. That's what the family abolitionist agenda is all about. Let's have a look at the next step. So continuing the theme of organising rather than agonising, we have to de-ideologise, and that is expose and unpack the underlying political campaign of family abolitionism that drives parental alienation deniers. It also unpacks the extreme social and political process that follows from critical education. Once we identify the connection between social conditions and individual presentations, we can identify the ideology that drives it. Remember, parental alienation is an idea. A parent in a family has the idea that I will get rid of the other parent and use the child as a weapon to do that. They don't care what happens to the child as long as they achieve the mission of getting rid of the other parent, because they want to restructure the family. Whatever their psychological motivations, that's their political intent. And so at the core of alienating social situations, at the core of the ideology we are identifying, is how identity and relationships become a commodity, how they are objectified. And that is the fundamental contradiction of alienation and Marxist thinking, that the very same thing that Marxist extremist politics criticises about capitalist democracies is the very method they use themselves. And our job is to call out that process, to identify how they contradict themselves and how their political process and their aspirations abuse power in family relationships. So let's have a look at an example. Here are some examples of unpacking a political campaign against parental alienation to identify the inconvenient truths that undermine the family abolitionist position. The statements on the right were taken from a public submission published through a global organisation focused on human rights and family violence, amongst other things. You probably know the organisation I'm thinking of. The statements on the right serve as prime examples of misinformation and disinformation. They are strategically crafted to sway public opinion towards a specific political ideology. The first statement on the right is a clear attempt to control the narrative. It mirrors the tactics of alienating parents. Remember, who controls the narrative in the family? Controls the family. By trying to rename alienation as a form of coercive control instead of alienation, the family abolitionists take control of the idea in order to propagate their ideology. Again, controlling the narrative is a political act of power. That's what makes it so important that if we choose a name for this presentation, parental alienation, we stand by that name, because that's how we define the field that we are in. That's what describes our lived experience. If somebody else chooses to call it coercive control, they are defining what it is for us. It's an act of power over us. That doesn't diminish the idea that parental alienation is a form of coercive control, but it's also more than that. It's more than just an example of family violence. It's a very special form of family violence and coercive control. That's why we should stick with the name. Finally, further on organising instead of agonising. We've moved on from critical education. We're calling out underlying politics and ideologies. Now we talk about de-alienating. These are the principles of liberation used elsewhere in the world against repressive regimes. We're using the same process with integrity. So we need to start a political campaign organised around family principles, favouring parent-child relationships around the world. As alienated parents, we have to become activists, militants, irritating disruptors, holding up a mirror to bad behaviours. And we disrupt family abolitionism by disruptive counter-discourse, counter-narratives that exposes and unsettles them. We have to make them uncomfortable, make them squirm. What if it was their kids? Would they condone that behaviour? Do they think it's respectful to demean evidence-informed lived experience? How do they see the framework they're imposing on others? We focus on the qualities of our relationships, not ownership of relationships. We recognise that relationships are a form of power that creates relational security. But we don't objectify those relationships. We don't make them a thing to trade, and we don't weaponise them. The great weakness of those who oppose us is they attempt to claim the moral high ground by using the same methods they criticise in others. They also harm the people they claim to protect. There are no individuals in their world. There is only the communal subscription to someone's ideology. They have no moral compass about how they go about it. They're amoral in their goals. Our strength is that we have a moral high ground for our integrity, which comes to holding to our principles. We need to do the same. Challenging relationship-based alienation, analyse its workings, disrupt them, and propagate new, secure attachment values that centre the family as its hub. That's the way forward. Thank you for your time. All the best.
Next week on Families Divided TV, Lisa Rothfuss speaks to us on a guide to court-ordered reunification.